This week we're heading all the way up north to Newcastle for two amazing coffees by Northside coffee roasters based in Newcastle on coffee.review. So welcome back to this week's video. As we said, we've got two coffees by Northside coffee roasters, the Way Man and the Way Pet. And I'm not going to try the accent because it will sound really dodgy. You don't want anything more than this awful Essex accent in the first place. But two really interesting coffees. Now, if we look at them individually first, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the backstory as to what they actually are as well. So these are, well, as they say, built by hand. And the story really kind of shows why this is the case. The Way Man is an Ethiopian and Guatemalan blend. Expecting chocolatey things in there, lots of caramelly flavours. Then we have on the opposite side the Way Pet. Now this one is from Nicaragua and Honduras, so should be expecting something a little bit more tart, perhaps a little bit more fruity on that. Now the two regions and, well, the four regions technically, and the two coffees are very different for very different reasons. Now these were sent to me by my good friend Stevie Angus, who's been a long time subscriber and follower of Coffee with GPA, and he emailed me to say that every time I review a coffee it costs him a fortune because he has to go and buy more of it. Well, hopefully Stevie, you haven't got to buy any of this one, as this is your very own blend. Now there's a really cool story, as we said, to this. Stevie basically wanted to buy the particular house blend by Northside coffee roasters up in Newcastle, and they said that they wouldn't sell him their own blend, which is fair enough. It's their own creation, they could do whatever they want with it. But what they did suggest was curating and creating Stevie's very own bespoke coffee. So they asked him a few questions about what he liked, what he enjoyed, and what he was looking for in a blend, and they handcrafted it just for him. So Stevie, the reason this exists is all down to you, and what an amazing job you guys have done as a team in this as well. So, what does Way Man and Way Pet actually mean? Well, if you're of my age group, mid-30s let's say, I'm actually now sort of 37, so I don't know if that really counts as mid-30s, but you might remember watching Biker Grove if you're in the UK. And that's all I really remember from Biker Grove was everyone saying Way Man and Way Pet. I'm sorry, I can't do the accent and I'm not even going to try it, Stevie. But these actually complement each other really well. So Stevie told me that each of these names are quite specific. When Northside created this blend for Stevie, his words were Way Man, which basically translates into my common English, yes man. And Way Pet actually means yes lady. So you have two bespoke coffees, or a his and a hers. I think that's kind of cool. It's quite a nice little almost like romanticized story of how these came together, and it's really cool. So what I actually wanted to do in this video was show them in two different forms. So you've got the same curators, the same minds that have come together to make this coffee. You've got some very earthy, very chocolatey South American flavors in here, and some very fruity flavors in these. So I wanted to make both using the same sort of processes in terms of grinding it, making it, and I just wanted to try it, well, two different ways. So with the Way Man, I'm actually going to make this as an espresso with my rock espresso maker. And with the Way Pet, I'm actually going to be making this with my Chemex, which I believe, or the pour over method at least, is one of Stevie's favourites. So I wanted to see how these would taste and if they pronounce the flavours a bit more articulately. So let's go ahead and make our coffees. Let's just ultimately see what they taste like. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go down the Way Man route as an espresso. So when we're looking at coffees from places like Guatemala and Ethiopia, you should see two quite contrasting flavours there, because generally speaking, Guatemalan coffee tastes very biscuity and very sweet, but Ethiopian coffee has some quite subtly citrusy flavours that are mildly caramelly and almost toffee-like on the undertones. So technically, if you're thinking about things as I'm explaining that, like, I just think of millionaire shortbread and cheesecake, you know, fruity flavours with savoury flavours, that wouldn't be a million miles off what I'd expect. But let's give it a try first as our espresso. Now, admittedly, I've let this cool just a little fraction, and that's only because I'm recording a video and can't do everything on the second. However, this is exactly what I would expect. It's savoury, it's buttery, it's full of like the digestive biscuit sort of flavours, but there's a very slight grapefruity, citrusy twang to it as well. And I don't even care that it's like 10 o'clock at night. This is amazing. It's not overly complex, it's not bold, it doesn't hit you square in the face like some coffees do, but the flavour balance is brilliant. And if perhaps you avoid blends and you prefer to go down the single origin route, I think you might be well versed to try this, because it's really delicious. And it's just got all of those characteristics that you would expect, particularly of a Guatemalan coffee. Certainly on the first couple of inhales of that, you can really see where that comes from, and it's been roasted so well. And just subtly fruity on the back end as well, almost like a slight blackcurrant sort of smell. It's funny, the more that starts to cool back, the more the flavours become a lot more pronounced, funnily enough, which is really interesting. So that really speaks volumes about the way it was curated, the way it was roasted, but in particular the regions it comes from. If you really like your coffee and you like reading about your regions, you understand the different types of coffees that come from these different places, the interesting thing about this is that you can hand pick that quite easily. You could quite comfortably taste that, even without looking at the bag, and detect the Guatemalan coffee and detect the Ethiopian influences in that as well. Okay, so on to our second coffee, the YI Pet. Now, the interesting things about these is that you've got two fairly close regions actually. My geography is not the best by any stretch of the imagination, but you have Honduras and Nicaragua in that. So Nicaragua being very, very close to Costa Rica, nice acidity, nice sort of earthy but very fruity flavours. And Honduras is also known for, kind of similar to Guatemala, very biscuity, quite subtle chocolate flavours. Nothing like a Brazilian that sings chocolate. This is subtle, which is really, really cool. And I kind of get the impression that, you know, from what Steve has told me, if I'm expecting more fruitiness in this perhaps than the YI Man, then it could make for a very interesting coffee. So let's give this a little pour out from my Chemex. Now, on the espresso, first of all, I was using quite a fine grind. If you're a niche user, I was using under 10. I was at about 8 on the setting on that. But for my pour over in my Chemex, according to my niche, I'm on a filter drip at around 37. So this is fairly coarse, but still just fine enough to get good balance between the extraction time and the flavours being brought out from that. So let's give this a try as well. The thing I love about the Chemex, especially when you're using fresh beans, like these are as fresh as you can get, it creates just such like an immaculately clean cup. And I think that's one thing that I was always told when it came to buying a Chemex. That's the one thing to look for, just how clean that coffee is. I mean, you can almost like see through the colour, it's so transparent. Now already, this has been allowed to cool a little fraction as well. We're seeing lots of fruit, but it is a little bit gateau-y almost. You've got that, the sort of cakey, sugary, flowery sort of smells finished off with those fruit fragrances too. Certainly a lot sweeter and a lot more sort of red currants and cherries, black cherries in this, certainly on the nose than that one. Now this is, I would say cherries, like dark cherries, dark fruits, are going to be your more prominent flavours in that. But again, they're not in your face punchy and very bold and very outlandish. They're subtle, but you can pick them out. If I was to say anything about, probably more so this one I would say, is it's coffee for coffee lovers. Now I think between the two of them, if you're into your coffee that is all singing, all dancing, in your face all the time, you'll enjoy these, but they won't do the same for you as like a very dark roast or a very caffeine-rich roast that a lot of people are buying at the moment. This is for the people that would enjoy sitting back, understanding where the coffee's from and really enjoying it. You know, I've likened coffee to wine on a few occasions, or even whiskey. You understand about the regions, you understand what goes into the, you know, I guess like the grains that go into the drinks themselves, how the different areas actually affect the growth of the grains that are being used. And it really is kind of the same for the coffee. Because you're understanding where it's coming from, you're understanding the like the geography of the areas and how the weather affects the growth of the coffee beans in those particular places, you can really pick up those nuances throughout. And when I say that, I really mean it. It's a coffee for coffee lovers. I think the packaging's awesome anyway, but if you look aside from that and you just focus on the product itself, this really is to be savoured. And you know, I've admittedly tried this quite a few times now, but on every occasion I've just sat there, switched off the TV, even like the music in most instances, and just enjoyed that moment and understanding where the flavours are in it. It's a really nice experience, a really nice experience. And again, it's just such a smooth coffee. People like to have their coffee in their own individual ways. I know people that view it as sacrilege to put milk in coffee. Other people will put different creams in their coffee, and I'm not on that side. I don't entirely agree with that. But to appreciate something for exactly what it is a real blessing in disguise. And I think for both of these coffees, the subtlety that comes through, and actually, to be fair, as it cools off, the flavours are even more pronounced. Like, I do think these are just so lovely. This has been my little way of sort of sharing these coffees with you, and I hope you found it useful. Whatever equipment you're using, I think you can bring out a lot within these coffees. Whether you're using a Chemex or if you're using a V60 or even a filter like cafetiere press, or if you want to try it as an espresso, this is definitely something that you can appreciate and get a lot from. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it, if you've tried it, if you've gone and bought yourself a bag after watching this, which I really hope you do, because you'll really enjoy both of these. Let me know how you're getting on. Don't forget, on Instagram as well, at Coffee with GPA. Check out my updates and a couple of videos I've done on there, but also tag me in it and let me know how you're finding this coffee. If you do want to buy yourself a couple of bags, I've left the details underneath this description so you can order yourself some as well. Stevie and Northside Coffee Roasters, you guys are absolute geniuses. Well played on curating such awesome coffees. I hope you enjoy both of these, and I do hope you get in touch to let me know how you find them. I can't wait to see you next week on coffeewithgpa.com. Keep enjoying your coffee, and I'll see you soon. Take care.